So welcome to this session on how to have a great life. And it's so nice to have you here today, you, Tricia, Li Wei, Fran, Paul, and others as well. And I want to really offer you a sort of just a simple approach, a way of thinking about where you've got leverage, where there's opportunity for improving the course of your life, the quality of your life. And of course, this is a never-ending journey. You know, maybe one day the angels will sing and I'll float up on a cloud in a white nightie, but it hasn't happened yet, you know, so there's still further opportunity for me to improve the quality of my life, to lean into this amazing thing called existence. So I want to just share some slides with you. And so what does it take to have a great life? That's really a great question, isn't it? And who would you be if you had a great life under all circumstances, whether favorable or difficult? In Tibetan Buddhism, there are the six, they call them the six hell realms. There's the human realm, but there's sort of a realm that's very, very deceptive called the God realm. And the God realm is when you're a celebrity living in Hollywood, where everything's great, your success is fantastic, and you think you've got it all. But of course, what happens in the God realm, you know, is that you get older, you get ill, all the beautiful things around you decay, relationships end, because that's the nature of life. You know, the good news about life is that all bad things end. And the bad news about life is that all good things end. That's the nature of life. And so it's not about just saying, I'll have a great life and I'll be rich and I'll have, you know, my relationships will be perfect and everything will be going swimmingly and I'll live to 150 and then die, you know, doing my favorite sport or something like that. It's, you know, life has all this incredible beauty and it has also this difficulty. And the truly good life is one in which we have the psychological resources to deal with both of those, the favorable and the difficult. So, so the first principle, first point, is to make the most of what is great about yourself. You know, so often in psychotherapy, we focus on what's wrong with us, which is, you know, we're going to come to that in a moment. But the first thing to focus on is, you know, what is my life calling? What am I passionate about? What am I really good at? What do I love doing? What makes, what makes my life great? What are my favorite hobbies? What puts me in the flow? What brings me well-being? How can I lean more into that? What quality of relationship do I like? How can I develop that quality of relationship and deepen it and lean more into it? So there's a whole part of the journey of life, which is just recognizing what it is that you love, what it is that you're great at, what it is that puts you in the flow, what you flow at, and doing more of that. You know, one of the meditations for Milton Erickson is to dream about all of these things. And then he would just say, have more of that, have more of that, have more of that. So that's the sort of first axis. The second axis, of course, is that we have difficulty. And there are certain things that trigger us into feelings that are disproportionate to the current situation. Somebody makes a small criticism or even a suggestion for improvement, and you take it as a sort of a complete destruction of your personal identity. Or somebody is a little bit too busy and you feel completely unloved and rejected and abandoned. And we all know that, and we all have our own versions of that. So one key part of having a great life is to learn about what those triggers are, and then to both bring healing to those triggers, healing to those places, compassionate love to those places, because love is the healing force. Your own compassionate heart is one of the key healing forces. We could say actually there are three healing forces. The first is your own compassionate heart. The second is of someone else who sees you, gets you, believes in you, and supports you. And there are many different, there are different ways that that can be done. And of course, the third is calling on, drawing in, noticing, leaning into, surrendering to love of a higher power, whether that's you consider that to be spiritual, or whether you consider it to just be the incredible abundance and diversity of Mother Nature, both in the cosmos and creation itself, is a way we can surrender to that sense of awe of creation. And that can be one of the things that helps us transform difficulty. We'll talk more about this. So those are two big agendas, aren't they? And they balance each other. The first is, let's keep focusing on what's great about us, and let's use what's great about us to hold the places in ourselves to be bigger than the places in ourselves where we're wounded, where we hurt, where we get cranky, where we stop being our best selves. So it's finding something bigger than our difficulty to hold the space for ourselves in our difficulty. And we can apply that psychologically, both of these two psychologically, to our individual identity. And that's what psychology is about. This is a sort of a summary of the best of psychology. But we can also think about our identity as the infinite and eternal. And for a long time, I've been quite coy about talking overtly beyond the psychological because of science and because of the way we think in modern society. But increasingly, through my mindfulness practice and through my meditation practice, I've discovered that my inner resources are much bigger than just my psychological resources. And so therefore, I've started to talk about this more. You could call this the ever-present origin. Anthropologist called Gebser call this the ever-present origin. In philosophy, one of the great philosophers, I can't remember who, said that the first question we have to ask is, why is there existence? So there was non-existence, and here is existence. Now, isn't that an interesting topic? How did stuff come out of non-existence into existence? I'm not sure really why is quite the right question, but if we just think about the transition, the relationship between non-existence and existence, stuff comes into form. Wow, isn't that amazing? Isn't that miraculous, if you like? Isn't that awe-inspiring? And so the ever-present origin is that space in the universe that's beyond time and is infinite, that is that transition between there being nothing and there being something. And that is present in every single moment. That quality is present in every single moment, whether it's whether one looks at it through the eyes of a scientist or whether one looks at it through the eyes of a particular spiritual tradition. And by the way, folks, I have to admit to being slightly anti-religion and slightly pro-spirituality, because religion is so often, so much of it is very often not about the words of the founder, someone else's interpretation of what the founder said. And secondly, there are these sort of big hierarchies and orthodoxies, usually dominated by men, when actually the founder was often quite different, Christianity being a striking example, where the founder was quite different to the hierarchies that are present today and the orthodoxies that are present today. And this is true for all the spiritual traditions. The good news is that when you get to the mystical level of all the traditions, they all see the same thing and recognize the same thing in each other. So there's something there that all traditions recognize. And also scientists who have really looked with fresh eyes at the universe have a sense of awe that is very, very similar as well. And so part of my interest in life is to help people find if you like, their own spirituality, to lean into their own relationship with the infinite, rather than listen to somebody else. Rather, we can draw ideas, we can draw models, we can draw theories from, whatever tradition we like. Perhaps it's a tradition that we were connected to from birth, or perhaps it's something that we found later in life. But whatever tradition we're connected to, or no tradition at all, what are the threads in you that experience the sacred, that experience something bigger than your own life? What are those threads, and how do you develop those threads? And I'm really interested in helping people develop their own, their own sense of connection with the universe. The great thing about doing this from the inside, rather than joining a religion, is that nobody can burn you at the stake for what it is you imagine in your own mind. So I have a dinner table in my mind, and I have leaders of many different traditions all sitting around having dinner together. I have the founders and the prophets of different traditions all hanging out, and they're teasing each other, they're joking with each other, they're saying, "Oh my God, you should see what my lot are doing." I have a very vivid inner spiritual life, because I don't have to take it to anybody else and ask them for permission to do it. It's my direct experience of the sacred. And so that's the sort of essential model. But the one thing I'm adding is that rather than just go to psychotherapy or attend personal evolution groups, and rather than just sit and meditate, let's take action in the world. And most of the best spiritual traditions have this, that you serve other people, whether it's the Buddhists, I do this for the sake of all beings, or whether it's the Christian view of service, or whether in Islam it's always taking care of the beggars and the people who haven't got food or water. Every tradition has this. So this is the first sort of big point. So make the most of what is great about yourself. So there are well-being practices. In generative change, it's called coach practice: centered, open, aware, held. And then I'm very, very strong on life calling. What is the thing in you? What are you most passionate about, that you most want to create in your life? And we do this in level 1, life talent level 1. What are your strengths and talents? And what are the psychological resources that support you? And this could be the people who are your friends and mentors, and the people who love you, and the people who believe in you. Or it could be people that you identify with in stories or storybooks or archetypal figures. Or it could be world figures that you've never met. For example, when I want dogged persistence, I think of Nelson Mandela, being in prison for 27 years and still keeping his direction and his sense of purpose. And then vision. What's your vision for your life? Who do you want to be in your life? Reasonable men and women fit themselves to the world. Unreasonable men and women fit the world to themselves. Therefore, all progress depends on unreasonable men and women. And that's a slight adaptation of a quote from George Bernard Shaw. So, let's, as much as we can, shape our lives to the way that we think would be really most delicious, most delightful, best. Of course, in the end, life eats us, but let's act as if we're eating life. And the other thing that's in this equation is that there is not only your individual life calling, but there is how life calls you. Nelson Mandela was the right person at the right time. A really good example, actually, is Winston Churchill, who, he was a colonialist. He was, classist. He was racist, and he was alcoholic. He had lots of bad qualities about him, but he was the right man at the right time. So sometimes life calls you in a way that, that at a different time you would have been somebody different. Steve Jobs would be an example of that. He was, at that time, life wanted what he had. But one of the things that is really a beautiful metaphor for me is the metaphor of the ocean and the wave. So if there's the ocean of existence and my individual life is a wave, it rises, it sparkles, and it disappears. If I identify with the wave, my individual self, then I'm going to die, I'm going to disappear. If I identify with the ocean, I never disappear. So I think that gradually changing one's sense of identity from being an individual who was born and who will die to being, the ocean of existence, that is what's so attractive about the spiritual path and the mystical path. And actually, I think moving along that isn't so difficult. I think it's as we begin to separate out religion from true spirituality, it becomes easier. And also when we have psychological tools that support us in this, it becomes easier. The other thing to say about this, why this is so important, is because the focus on the individual self, the ego, is a part of the problem of humanity and, in fact, the whole biosphere. We're all trying to get more than everyone else. We're all trying to make the most of ourselves. And then we get together with a tribe of people, the British or the English or the Americans or the Chinese or whatever country it is, and we're just trying to get to the top of the pile. That sort of egocentric approach is not working for the world or the biosphere, for Mother Earth anymore. I don't need to say a lot about that. And so we actually need to look at things bigger than our individual egos, our individual selves. So actually, this model doesn't quite show it, but you've got your individual self, which we need to fulfill. You've got your community of mind that we need to fulfill. You've got Mother Nature. We need to take care of, we are Mother Nature. When have you ever been separate from Mother Nature? With every breath, with every glass of water, with every piece of food, you remind yourself that you are nature. And what is your body other than a biological nature? So we are nature. To increase our sense of identity with that, nature is not something that we can just take all the resources and abuse. Nature is our livelihood. It's our mother and it's ourselves. We need to take care of our ancient mother because it's taking care of ourselves. And so again, also, when you have the innocent eyes of looking at things in this way, then all of life is much more beautiful, and you handle the difficult things in life much more easily than you would if you didn't have this sense of awe about the magnificence and also the suffering of creation. So learning how to transform difficulty. I don't want to spend too long on these slides, but we can transform our inner difficulty with loving kindness. We can learn to love ourselves. We can compassionate about our double binds. A double bind is when I'm damned if I do something and I'm damned if I don't. I want to love, but I'm too scared to let it in. And also to have compassion for the parts of us that stop us from changing. And one of the really helpful views is that the more we transform and face our suffering and our difficulty, that deepens us. So when I talk to people, when I coach people who've had really difficult early lives, difficult circumstances in their life, and I say, the bad news is that this is really painful and it will take time to heal. The good news is that you'll be a deeper and wiser person as a result of doing this than the rest of the population. I know one person who I think hasn't had too much difficulty in her life. Of course she has. And she's got beautiful husband, beautiful kids, nice dog, nice house, lives near a golf course, goes out there every day. And she's a lovely person. She's quite superficial. So when you face your suffering and your difficulty and transform it and heal it, there's something that comes through that makes you much deeper and wiser. So this statement, meaning in life through how we face unavoidable suffering, came from Viktor Frankl, who was in concentration camp, in the Nazi concentration camp. But that process of transformation is really, really helpful. really, unfortunately, I used to think that let's just grow through positive learning experiences, but actually I find that I've grown a lot more through the suffering of my life. But you have to be able to face that suffering. And so the infinite, the eternal identity, spirituality, whether postmodern or conventional, surrendering to a higher power, feeling supported by a higher power, knowing that presence, love, and creativity are the essence of happiness. And this whole thing, you were source before you were born. You've never been separate from source. The Buddhists talk about who were you before you were born. And then this other thing, which I think is super important, which is go out and experiment. Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, highly successful people. The first principle is be proactive, make it happen, do stuff. And so in a book I wrote a long time ago with Robert Dilts and Anne Deering, one of the chapters was called Ready, Fire, Aim, rather than ready, aim, fire, which is what is used for a gun. Have an idea, try it out, and then do in-course correcting. Just go out and do stuff and find out how it works for you. Engage with the world. Pursue a vision for your life. Express your life calling and your strengths. So any questions? Any questions or comments on what it is that I've presented?
Not a question, more of a reflection. There's a hell of a lot in that.
Yeah, exactly. A lifetime's worth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of the signs of someone who's a master is that they're on the path of mastery. I use the word master in for both men and women. Obviously, it's a gendered word, but that's just the way it is that they continue to develop and grow themselves for every single day of their life, and they're still doing it on the day that they die. And if you look at people who've been really talented in their profession, they are still trying to improve themselves, even when they're one of the greatest in the world. Pablo Casals, someone said, "Why do you still practice 6 hours a day?" And he said, if I don't practice for 1 day, I will notice. If I don't practice for 2 days, musicians will notice. If I don't practice for 3 days, audiences will notice. And I think other famous people have said similar things. So this is what's so beautiful, is that we're on a journey that is a never-ending journey. I have no idea to what degree I will have evolved by my final day on Earth. I'm rather hoping that on my final day on Earth, that I'm so excited about what comes next, I leap with joy into the void. That's what I'm hoping for. So and that means that we have an ageist society, which is you're really strong and you're powerful in your 20s and your 30s, and you reach your peak in your 40s, and then somewhere in your 50s you begin to go downhill, and that's pretty much it. Whereas my view is that I'm 67. I haven't reached my peak yet. I'm not running around quite as fast and as much as I have, but I have an awful lot more wisdom, and I'm much less of a arse, to use a technical word. So it's all to play for, and we need to have that view about our lives, and put aside those views which are both ageist, and to some degree sexist, because I think men are allowed to be wise elders and have stature more easily than women in our culture and our society. You have to push that aside and say, I'm going to be who I want to be, and I'm going to make as much noise as I want to, and I'm going to shout my life calling, what I'm about, perhaps from the rooftops, or perhaps not even shout it, but whisper it in a trance-inducing way. I mean, it could be shouting or it could be whispering. And to really have my voice, and not to let my voice get stopped. Any other comments or questions? Paul?
Yes, before Christmas, I guess I rather elusively referred to uh, a major setback. And
You weren't
my
that elusive about it. You
was
said more than you'd ever said before on one of these.
well, I've worked on it since, and it's simply this: that in about 2010, I suffered. Well, I didn't suffer, but there was a report about me that was a matter of a character assassination.
Yeah.
And that influenced significant people in a way that bore no relation to anyone else who knew me closely, personally, since or before. And getting that, tackling that, is proving very difficult. If you've ever seen the musical Matilda or the film, there's a line which goes, sometimes you've got to put it right yourself, not just accept what happens. So I'm in a situation where I'm trying to challenge an authoritative, so-called authoritative character assassination, and not just shrug it off and say, yes, I'm bigger than this and all that, but I want to put right. And it's beyond a narcissistic wound. It's something which is actually, it's totally condemned my own authentic self. So I've got to really work with that, not on this.
I mean, because you're not going into the detail of it, and we haven't got a lot of time either.
I know,
so therefore it's a bit of. I mean, I know more than most of the other people on the call, so it's a bit abstract for us. So we sort of need to move it on a bit. But so here's the thing. So there may be some, you may be able to put things right in the world, or not. But the one thing that you do have control over is your own spiritual practice and your own psychological practice. And the chances are that if you find your inner well-being and you have your inner resources, both the individual resources and really connected to higher power resources, then whatever the case, it will, you'll be fine. There's a story from James Finley, a Christian mystic, who was a student of Thomas Merton, the Christian mystics, Thomas Merton, and he read Thomas Merton's books at school, and then as soon as he left school, he went to the monastery to find Thomas Merton, and part of his story was that as a child, his father was alcoholic, and he said, my father beat me by day and beat my mother by night. And his mother was a Catholic and said to him, pray to God and God will help you. So he prayed to God, and God gave him a secret place to hide where he couldn't be hurt anymore. And he said, only years later, when I trained as a cognitive psychologist, did I realize that it was dissociation. But then he said, but who is to say that God didn't give that to me? Sometimes, and would he have followed his path if it hadn't been for that difficulty? There's a story of a Zen master who, actually there are several different stories, but there's one of a Zen, similar stories from different traditions of a Zen master a girl in the village gets pregnant, and, is so, ashamed by it and the consequences for her boyfriend that she says it's the Zen master, the old man in the village, who got her pregnant. So the parents are furious, bring the baby to his house, give him the baby and say, you terrible man, this is your child, you look after it. And he says, is that so? Takes the baby, finds a woman who's got milk and looks after the baby. And about 6 months later, the girl finally confesses to her parents that it was actually the boy in the village, not the Zen master. And so they come back sort of bowing and, and saying, oh, we're terribly sorry, master, it's not your baby. We're so sorry for all the trouble that it's caused you. And can we have the baby? And he just says, is that so? That's an example of somebody who's really got that centeredness in, in the Holy Spirit or the Tao or whatever you want to call it, that you can handle, that you've found a place that is beyond the difficulty of life, and is also beyond, it's not beyond the beauty of life, it's beyond the sort of conventional desires of life, where, renunciation in Buddhism says, particularly in Tibetan Buddhism, or what's called tantric Buddhism, worldly Buddhism, which is that, if you've got a lot of money, that's great, you can have fun with it. If you've got a lot of money, that's great, you can have fun with it. It's like whatever the circumstance, you can have a good time with it. And of course, this is really easy to say, it's incredibly easy to say. My practice is, I've had my own suffering, but my practice is, for all the little sufferings in my life, I try to have a good attitude about it. And that's not, I don't mean to say association and just saying it's all fine, because I have a tendency to do that anyway, because I came from a sort of British Empire family. I was once at the doctor and about to have quite a nasty procedure, and they said, "You realize this is a nasty procedure?" And out of my mouth came the words, "Well, it's not going to be as bad as the Normandy landings." I don't know where it came from, but it was like the sort of British stiff upper lip was channeled. And of course, I'm not suggesting that we just dissociate from our difficult feelings. We need to bring love and compassion to our difficult feelings. But at the same time, as much as I can, I try to take the little setbacks of life to practice finding my center and my heart and my connection to life, because probably one of these days, a bigger setback, something worse will come along, such as, aging or illness. And that's all I can say, that to take the difficulties of life as a practice. And that doesn't mean to say that we don't do anything about them, because I think it's absolutely right to challenge injustice. Challenging injustice is, such an important thing. So, I support you in challenging injustice, Paul. And at the same time, let's have a sense of identity that's bigger than that as well, which I think you have that connection anyway. And it's a fine balance. When I think about what my generation and the previous generation in Europe and North America in particular have done around consumption and the destruction of the environment with the use of fossil fuels, I feel really terrible about, the climate change has only just begun. It's only just begun. Things are going to get a whole lot worse. And my generation is responsible for that. But if I just go into that feeling, I'm no good to anybody, am I? So I've also got to keep a different place in me, which is about, following my life calling, following my passion, being the best I can be, being a role model, and also calling on higher power, whether it's Mother Nature, who is my great mother, or whether it's, the ever-present origin of the universe, which is sort of even bigger than that. So great. Thank you for that, Paul. Yeah. Anything else before we do a meditation? Any other questions? I know what I've just said applies to you as well, Fran, so I'm aware of that. Yeah. And it's this balance between following one's passion and one's gift to the world, following your gift to the world, which your gift to the world, Fran, and also holding with love the difficulty and the hurt without being overwhelmed by it, without letting it run the show, because that doesn't really help either. But not dissociating. It's a difficult one, So anything from anyone else before we move to a meditation? Trisha, Christina, Li Wei, Emily, any other questions? Okay. So let's have the meditation. So I'm just feeling my body right now. That's where I always start. So feel your body. the only truly real thing, concrete thing, sort of physically real thing, is the physical reality of the body sitting where you are on the sofa, or the present moment where you are. All the thoughts about the future, all the thoughts about the past are constructions, are fabrications, are layers. Are maps, if you like. And the only thing that's truly, well, physically real, let's put it that way, is your body, gravity, the feeling of the pressure of my backside on the chair, the sounds that I can hear through my ears. And what I can see in my mind's eye, if my eyes are closed, and what I can see with my optical eye, if my eyes are open. But if your eyes are closed, perhaps you can see the darkness of your eyelids and the light on your eyelids. So just paying attention to your senses. And just noticing how much you can see, the different things you can see, all the different feelings. In Buddhism, they say that a nerve ending is a Buddha. It's a point of awareness. So therefore, the body is a Buddha field. So you can't do it, but try to, it's impossible, it's too many, but try to feel all your nerve endings at once. Like scan your body. Of course, the only way to do it is to feel something. So, feel a toe. Feel the skin on your feet. The pressure of the muscles in your feet onto the skin, onto the ground. And it can be so enjoyable to just feel ourselves. And particularly the simplicity of feeling skin, feeling muscles. I'm not sure how much, I need to check this out, how much bones actually feel. But I think the way we feel the bones is through the contact with the muscle and the skin. But I may be wrong about that. But it always seems that way to me, that what I'm feeling is what's around the bone, what holds the bone. And again, with the skin, it's so interesting. It's the largest organ on the body. And then you've got the sensation of air on your skin. You've got the sensation of skin against clothing. You've got the sensation of the weight of your body pressing down onto your skin, whether it's through, if you're sitting, through your backside, and also perhaps your feet as well. And one could spend lots of time just checking out how the skin feels with different clothing, for example. My trousers are cotton. My sweater is wool. There's so much we can pay attention to, and it's just very simple and immediate, isn't it? And I love to listen to sound, because sound also takes me beyond my skin. So if I listen outside the house and it may be silent, but even then I'm listening. But here I can hear the wind. Maybe there's traffic. And then I can listen into the house. Are there people? I used to live in a house where the house itself made noises. The floors creaked, even when somebody wasn't walking, or the heating system. So what are the noises, the sounds of the house? And perhaps it's quiet. And the sounds in your room could be the echo. You can hear my voice through the computer. Are there any other sounds? Then I can listen for sounds in my body, my breathing. If it's really quiet, I can hear my heart. Sometimes I hear my heart through the throbbing of my veins and arteries in my neck. And I can listen to my inner voice, or that it's like a radio station. It's not your voice, it's one voice, it's one sound. The you that can hear the sounds in the street, the you that can hear the sounds in the house and your body is a bigger you than that one little voice. It's like the voice of someone at a party who's talking to you. You can listen with interest and compassion, curiosity. But it may or may not be true. You may or may not agree with that voice. Sometimes that voice is expressing some sort of feeling. It's like a verbal expression of a feeling. So you can just be interested and watch it, listen to it. A Buddhist master I know says, stare at the thoughts. I quite like that. And then let's notice that there's two things going on. One is that your attention jumps around, paying attention to the feet, paying attention to the sound, paying attention to the inner voice. If we're trying to hold everything we see, everything we hear, everything we feel in consciousness, the only way we can do that is with this sort of spotlight of attention that jumps around trying to include everything. Notice how your attention is moving around all the time. So then hopefully that's interesting, watching how your attention jumps around. But behind that is something else. So if it's like a mirror, the mirror is clear, has nothing in it, but lots of things get reflected, but they're not actually in the fabric of the mirror, are they? So awareness or consciousness is behind. So what is the field in which everything you see, everything you hear, and everything you feel, where does that arise? What is that? Something very still behind your attention. Like a mirror that never changes, but reflects everything. It's the field in which everything arises. The only thing that you know about the world is through this, the field in which everything arises. Everything comes through consciousness, arises in consciousness, is reflected through consciousness, awareness. Now, this is something we could spend a lot of time on. In Buddhism, they say awareness itself is the Buddha. But right now, let's use this to explore what it would be like to have a great life, what a great life means for you. If you were someone dealing well with the beauty, the wonders, the successes, making the most of yourself, using your talents and skills, expressing your love. If you were someone who was fully doing that, what would you look like, sound like? How would it feel? And if you were someone who could deal with the difficulties, the suffering of life, both the things that happen day to day, but also the wounding from your history, from your past, possibly wounding from your ancestral history, from your tribal history, from your cultural history. If you were someone who could hold all of that well with love and compassion, what would that look like and sound like and feel like? Who would you be? Who could you be? Who would you be? Who could hold everything that's great about you and express everything that's great about you and all of your inner resources, and also hold well your difficulty and your woundedness and your humanity and your longing and your vulnerability? Who could hold well the human condition? Someone who would know, who knows that your vulnerability is what gives you your sensitivity to others. Your longing is what enables you to love and to be compassionate with people, other people who long. So just imagining yourself, seeing yourself. If you were truly using your strengths, life calling, inner resources, passion, vision, skills, and also able to hold yourself well in difficulty and to hold your own woundedness well, to heal your own woundedness. To sense yourself both as an individual and as a part of humanity, and as an intimate expression of Mother Nature, the beautiful, gorgeous biosphere. And also something that's emerged from the ever-present origin, from non-existence into existence, something that's emerged in this amazing universe. That identity that we have that's eternal. We came from nothing into something. There's a play of creation of which we are a part. Who would you be if you knew all of this? Imagine what you'd look like and feel like, and perhaps sound like in your healthy old age. if you were really living all of this, really had explored deeply all of this. I imagine how I'd be with friends and loved ones, with colleagues, and with strangers. I imagine how I'd feel in my body. I imagine how I'm giving my gift to the world. You have a unique individual. You have a unique psychological history. You have your particular strengths. You have your own life calling. You have your life, your individual, unique life experience. There's only one of you in the world with this unique combination. And the world wants this, wants what you have to offer. This is your gift to the world, your life calling. To just enjoy offering our unique gift to the world. The three key relationships in life. The first is the relationship with yourself and existence. To be at peace with yourself. To know your place. To be close to your experience in existence. The second key relationships are the relationships of love, friendship, intimacy, community. Having deep encounters with others. And enjoyable superficial ones too. The man or woman in the shop. The second relationship is the, if you like, the journey of love. And the third one is giving your unique gift to the world. Some of you through your work, and for others post-retirement as a member of community. becoming this you, the fulfilled self, and the person who really knows, has an intimate relationship with the universal self. This is what life's about. So imagine what you have to do on the journey to being more and more this person. There's no magic solution. It's the path of life. Yet we can imagine. Or we could imagine who we want to be in 10 years' time, how we might be in 10 years' time. We can imagine where we would need to be or where we would want to be in 3 years' time to get to that vision of 10 years' time. And then we can wonder about what it is that we need to do this year to get us to our vision of 3 years, 10 years, and our whole lifetime. What actions do we take to make this happen? There's a beautiful saying, trust in God, but tie up your camel. We naturally grow, we naturally evolve. Yet also it's great to take conscious action. And when you're ready, just begin to reorientate yourself to the screen while staying deeply connected with yourself, so that you can feel the supportive field of this group. To just feel like-minded travelers. It's so important on our journey of life to have like-minded travelers. As Someone once said, we're all here to help each other get through this, whatever this is. Great. So just make eye contact with the screen so that I know that you're back, that you're not. Yeah, it's great. It's good. So we're going to do a short exercise in groups of 3. And there's it's just a simple question, which is, what's your vision? How did this meditation, really, actually, what's your vision? What are you going to do to make this vision happen in 2023? It's important to always have the how to, not just the vision, but the how to. And how did the meditation feel? Sometimes it works well for people, sometimes it doesn't work so well. But the main questions really are, what's the vision? Who can you be? And how might you just take some steps towards it? You don't need more than a few steps, then other steps will emerge. But it is important to take action. So the people who are listening in the group of 3, what you do is you really pay attention. Don't look at your iPhone. You can say, tell me more. You can nod. You should be, just really making eye contact with them, connecting with them. Don't coach them. Don't tell them it should be different. Don't give them advice, but just really draw them out. Get them to say more about what they're talking about. It's only 5 minutes per person. I will do the timing for both of the groups of 3. The listeners are really important, but you're paying attention and asking questions, but drawing them out. You're not coaching or trying to give them advice. And so it'll be groups of 3, and I'll let you know when each round changes. And find your breakout rooms, and it starts now. Li Wei's group and Christina's group, Paul didn't have sound and they had bad internet connection, so it wasn't quite so good in that group. But how was it for Nicola, Trisha and Fran? How was that for you? Trisha, yeah.
I'm happy to volunteer to speak. All 3 of us, I think, have been in a situation where our difficulties have been holding the reins of our lives.
Yes.
And we need to grab hold of those reins in different ways. You were all at different ways of needing to grab hold of the reins of our lives. And for me personally, it's about self-care, because I've been through a kind of shocking Christmas and I'm still reeling. And so it's back to the basics, get enough sleep, eat properly, exercise, fresh air, light, all those things. Then moving on to the other things that nurture me. So that I can then
nurture you. What are the things?
Generally, it's people. Yeah, in different ways, people and doing things that are creative.
Yes. What sort of creative things?
Craft stuff, generally, pottery, sewing, singing, dancing.
Beautiful.
All those things, acting. And in a normal course of events, I do all those things when I have the energy to do them, but my energy's been 0. So so self-care to get myself back to an energy level where I can do them.
Yeah. Just look at me. Look at me.
Hello.
Hello. Because it's like, you're revealing yourself a bit, and it's very beautiful, and I'm sure you feel touched by us, but just breathe in our connection and presence.
Yeah, I have been hermiting for the last couple of months through the difficulties, and now I'm getting better. I have the strength to then ask for help. This is part of my recipe, shall we say, to nurture myself.
It's so important, because there's a slight danger with some of the psychological tools that it's all on the inside, and we do need our inner resources, but we also need other people to see us and hear us and say yes to us. So I'm coming out of a period of crisis, and I know it'll pass. I know it'll get better, but I need to help myself to get there. Absolutely.
And for Nicola and for Fran, you know, their
Don't
method of grabbing
talk
hold,
about their stories without their
I
permission.
won't.
You know,
Method of grabbing hold of their reins might be different, and I'll leave it to them to tell you.
yeah. So, but we're talking
So,
about you right now, Tricia.
yeah.
Right.
So
just
yeah.
take some time to breathe in the attention that you're getting, because you were just passing on the attention, which is totally understandable because we're just not used to it. But just being seen, just being heard, witnessed in our experience is such an important thing.
Yes.
There's an exercise that we sometimes do on Life Talent, which is, you know, where there's an African tribe, and the way they greet each other, there are a lot of them, they're herds people in sort of very arid, sort of North African. It's not quite desert, but it's very arid, and they're looking after their cattle.
Yeah.
And they sometimes the people herding often don't see anybody for several days, but when they come across a member of their tribe, they look them in the eye and they say, "See me." And that's what we yearn to be loved, and we yearn to be seen by people who accept us the way we are. And whatever we tell them, people who say, "Oh, great," whatever we tell them, whether we tell them, or at least they say great to all the great stuff in our life, and they say, "Yes, I hear you," to all the difficulty. Everybody needs that. And one of the beauties of the modern world is you can do your own thing. But one of the problems is that our family of origin, the people we went to school with, may not necessarily be the people who fully see us anymore, who really get us. And so then we have to think, where will I find my psychological and spiritual tribe, my sangha, my community? And that is such an important thing to do. So I'm just sort of wanting to hold you in my gaze. In my heart, the gaze of my heart, actually, it's more than my eyes, and I get the feeling that Nicola and Fran were doing that for you. So
Yes,
good.
They were.
Good, beautiful. Nicola and Fran, how was it for you? It's like Fran's going to talk.
I was letting Fran go. I was sort of going, "Go, you can go, Fran."
Fran's still on mute, but now I think you're unmuted, Nicola. So it's
Oh.
You go first, Nicola. That's fine.
I really liked the idea of not coaching anybody, or just us not coaching each other and just listening and just holding that space.
Yeah.
I feel like that non-interruption, or that just allows your heart to explore. I think you just, as you're talking through it, you're almost sort of solving your own problems for yourself.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was a really nice, the three of us, it was really nice. And it was very strange how we all seem to have things in common in some shape or form. We were all sleepy. That was the biggest thing. It was
from the meditation, of course.
Yes, from the meditation, but also we were all experienced. We were in and out. So I don't know if it's just because it's, the second week in January and it's tiring and it's winter and rainy here, but whether it's just a coincidence. But we
when you say in and out, you mean falling asleep a little bit?
Yes, I was like, oh.
Now that's normal with meditations. That's normal with these meditations, because they do take us deep. And if we haven't been as relaxed as we need to be, then the meditation will just relax you. Some people just fall completely asleep for the whole thing and don't remember a word of it. And if that's the case, you can always go and listen to the audio afterwards, because on Saturday, a link to in fact, some of you in last week's newsletter, but has the links to the audios. Next week's newsletter will have it, but the person who edits the audio won't get it up till Saturday. But from Saturday, you can always listen to it again. So it's totally normal to fall asleep during these things. And actually, there's some research that says that they've played hypnotic suggestions around healing to people on operating theatres under general anaesthetic. And those people, heal more quickly than the people who didn't have it. you know. So, so the assumption is that we hear it even at some unconscious level anyway. And actually, it's actually worth saying that, our education system teaches us that we need to know things with our conscious mind, but actually in terms of healing and change, the unconscious is a much better place. So, it went in even when you were drifting in and out, so yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, and I apologize because I missed the beginning, but Trisha mentioned something you said about the difficulties is running the show, and I shared about that. I feel like the vision that I had for 10 years, I realized that I was going to be 57 in 10 years time, which then gave me a little bit of dread. Because I just thought, I can't be in the same place as I am now at 57 in 10 years time. I can't be there.
Good. High five.
Okay.
So you've got 10 years to change it.
Yes, but I guess that if I look at my past 7 years, I've been stuck, where a feeling of stuckness. Well, what I actually shared with them both is that I feel like, I know, I'm sorry if this sounds a bit violent, but it feels violent, that with the circumstances that have been happening in my life, I feel that somebody grabs the back of my hair and just pulls me back down.
Who is that? Who grabbed the back of your hair and pulled you back?
Well, at the moment, so because I've been going through a divorce, so it's been that. But at the moment, my 17-year-old, and I know a lot of people say that, oh, that's teenagers, they're awful, but it just feels, that I didn't have the time. I haven't had time to heal from the divorce, and now I'm going through this period now of my, very, very unkind and very unkind words and quite verbally abusive teenage son. I just get pulled back down there. I just I don't sort of like, and I feel like I sort of sit and let that sit on me so much. Whereas I'm learning hypnosis now, and I'm trying to now use the emotion that I'm in to put suggestions into my mind, positive suggestions. So making use of those emotions and putting and thinking, right, okay, I've got to imagine, I will be this and I will do this and I will do this. So I feel better. I do feel that I'm not getting pulled back as much.
So I mean, there's two things. One is, so first, sometimes it's necessary to be stuck for 7 years to be free, so that's one thing. So just because you've been stuck, I remember I once went to a therapist and it didn't work at all for a long time. And I thought, oh, that was a waste of time. But when I went to the next therapist, everything moved. Sometimes we have to stay with the stuckness. That's the first thing. The second thing is that it's really great to focus on your positive side, to keep remembering your positive psychological resources, your positive beliefs, your affirmations, doing all of that. But and there are these two really difficult experiences. The current one with your teenage son of 17, and then also your divorce, and all of that stirs up. And probably my guess would be that there's some, woundings from your childhood that gets touched by all of that. Yeah. And so a part of the healing process is not just to focus on all the positive resources, all the good stuff, but also to bring loving compassion, tenderness, healing to the younger yous that were wounded, both the one, the you of your childhood, you perhaps, whatever it was that, that you weren't held well in your childhood, but also perhaps any betrayals in the divorce, any of those things, and to really bring healing compassion to that. So it's so the model that I showed everybody, earlier, was a sort of matrix where, the top part of it was, I'll just show you very quickly, because you weren't here, but there's no harm in, wrong one, actually, I've got it. Stop sharing. Stop sharing. I have to open the other file. But I will show it to you. Just hang on for a second.
It's interesting what you said about being heard and not being heard or seen from your immediate family, and that is it. I feel like that now. And when you said, like, how do you then find, it's about finding the people that you do feel heard and seen, and a bit like Trisha said about being the hermit. I feel like I've been a hermit now, and lockdown for me was great. I didn't want to go out, and I was like, oh, this is nice. There's no pressure to go and be around people that don't really see me or hear me anyway.
But actually, so one of really an important thing is to find the people who do. And they may not be your family of origin. They may not be the people that you went to school with. Particularly with, the way our society works is quite a lot of people can get by with a consumer lifestyle. If they're feeling upset, going shopping, or drinking, or doing this or doing that, or talking about superficial stuff, or just putting all of the difficult stuff aside. But if you've got difficult stuff that's bothering you, you can't put it aside. And most people are not very good at being with that. They'll either give you advice, or they'll try to cheer you up, or whatever. So what's actually needed is somebody to say, yes, tell me more. A friend of mine, someone I haven't seen for a long time, actually, the sister of a friend of mine, posted something on Facebook about how lonely she was. She'd been ill. She said post-viral infection. And I messaged her and said, oh, I'm sending you love, and then we messaged back and forth. I don't know, I've only just got the message, but she had a full hysterectomy. And, she said post-viral infection, but that was on top of a full hysterectomy and bowel surgery, probably cancer. She's been at home for months. No wonder she's miserable, but she can't really tell. She doesn't want to tell people about it, but, full hysterectomy. She's young, that's some identity statement about her womanhood. But really, I was just really happy she told me. We need people that we can tell it all to, no holds barred. We need to be able to share it, and somebody to say, yes, wow, that must have been awful. Just that in itself is healing. And we all need communities of people. We need, because sometimes, one person can't hold everything we need to say or share. But if we have a small group of people, then they can all hold a little bit of it, And we all need that. And that is a major part of being human. And nowadays, in the old days, there was the village. And hopefully, if you were lucky, there was either, the wise woman of the village, the herbalist or whatever, or there was the village priest or the village priest's wife. There were people there who would hold it. And nowadays we're in a society that's so out of focus, consumer focused, that we don't have enough of that.
Individual focused.
Yeah. Sorry, what did you say? You said?
I just said individual focused.
Individual focused, yeah. And so it's so important. So I can just feel you now, and it actually feels great to feel you, because I can feel your sadness. But I can be with your sadness. It's, this is what it is to be human. I'm a weird guy because I'm not interested in cars or football, it's like, this is much more interesting to me, that here we are being human together. Talking about what it's, and there's a dance form I do called 5 Rhythms, and it's a psychological dance form. And one of the great things about it is it's like some of it can be ecstatic dance, but when you're feeling shit, you dance the shit dance. And the thing is that when you dance the shit dance, if you really give attention to the shit dance, really feeling awful dance, actually you start to get some joy back, and so it's sort of having space to share what's going on for us enables the possibility of joy. But it's not that if we push aside the suffering, the difficulty, it's very hard for the joy to come through. But if we welcome, hold, embrace, bring tenderness and love to the suffering, then there's much more of a chance that the joy will come. But also it's the other thing to say is, so disconnecting doesn't work, but also falling completely into it doesn't work. We need to be able to bring our warm hearts to our suffering, to bring our own holding to that suffering. And to start with, I mean, the reason why people see therapists and coaches is because sometimes you need somebody else to do it, a good friend, to say, I believe in you. I believe you can have love. I believe in the possibility of, even when you can't, you know, just to have someone to hold that space for us. And we're actually not designed to be self-sufficient anyway. I hope that every day of my life, I will still need people to hold me with love and to believe in me. I hope that that's the case. I never want to be so self-sufficient that I don't need anybody. I mean, imagine that. It'd be terrible, wouldn't it? But of course, the longing for it when it's not happening, you know, when we're lonely, isolated. And so part of it is just getting enough resources so that we can reach out to people who can hold us well, you know, and we develop those circles, those communities of people who can hold us well. Fran, just a few, Nicola, that's so beautiful. I want us to have a break because there's a session coming up on the Life Talent Program level 1 at 6, and I want us to have a bit of a break beforehand. But Fran, how was it for you sharing? Did you share your joy and your wounded heart as well?
Yeah. And I must admit, I did fall asleep, I think, for most of it, but you know, I could hear bits and bobs. And yeah, I think again, a lot of self-care. I've got a difficult time at the moment, and I haven't been very well.
Yeah.
So I'm really having to nurture and
self-care is not enough, Fran. Care of others. So how do we lean into the care of people who will give us the right energy back?
Care of others, Julian. I'm a therapist by my work, and I've probably done too much caring of others.
No, I didn't mean you caring for others. I meant you being cared for by others.
I have expressed myself more to my friends, well, and even because I have to yourself as well. You know, to sort of actually say that I'm going through divorce is it's been it's hard to say that.
Yeah, it's great.
Hard to say that, and our marriage didn't work, and there's many reasons and problems, but the problem is because it's interfering with the children, yeah, and so that gets me. Because
how is it interfering with the children? Because the children are...
It's been a very complicated very emotionally and psychologically and financially controlling relationship. And I've been out of my own control for too long.
And are you getting back into control?
I am getting back there. And actually, you know, with the divorce going ahead now, then this is going to make a big difference there. But it's very complex. But the problem is that my children don't understand. So my eldest one isn't speaking to me, and then at Christmas my blood pressure just goes boof.
And Fran, I'm sorry that
that's okay.
You know, I mean, because I was giving Trisha and Nicola attention, I haven't given you as much attention as
that's
I'd
okay. I'm fine, and I really, you know, it's so wonderful, these meditations and just the, you know, the care and we can feel the love between all of us.
Can you?
And
can I just ask you to stop talking for a second, Fran, and just look at me? I just want you to just feel me, and I know that you have a spiritual practice, so you can feel me, but you can also feel, you know, your inner supporters as well. But I just want to hear that I really hear your suffering and your difficulty. and I want to support you on that. So yeah, and, yeah. Great. So we've got, if you would like to hear about Life Talent Level 1 that starts on the 26th of January, I put the link into the chat. You may have the link elsewhere. It's just a different Zoom cut. Who of you are thinking of coming to that? Which of you are probably coming to that?
Yeah.
Great, fantastic, Fran.
I wasn't. What, to the coming to the next Zoom, you mean?
Yeah, which is just 45 minutes on Life Talent Level 1, which is starting in January. Sort of talk about that.
Yeah, I was thinking, but I've got another Zoom. I do philosophy. It's just a hobby philosophy class. It starts at 7 and I need to be able to cook and eat, so I can come on, but not maybe be on video, so I'm not distracting.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know.
I mean, come on, be on video for, well, we'll do whatever you need to do. Don't be on video if you don't want to. So I need to go to it. So the link is in the chat or in the newsletter, and I'll see you all soon. Lots of love to you. Lots
Thank
of
you.
love. Yeah. Great.